Zaxby's has been perfecting chicken fingers for 30 years, and now we're going to the sea. Shrimp butterflied and fried to perfection, and a perfect blend of Zax sauce and cocktail sauce called Zax Tail Sauce. The perfect southern fried shrimp meal. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
I know your name is Rita, 'cause your perfume is smelling sweet. Since when I saw you down on the floor. Guitar, whoa.
Well, in the debate that's set to take place this Thursday, no doubt border and migrant crime will be an enormous, enormous issue. Obviously, crime in general, economy, the wars that are going on, there's a lot of issues. But certainly what's been happening at the border and some of these horrific cases that have happened of late will definitely become a major focus and should be a major focus. If they're not, you can bet that President Trump will bring them up because Joe Biden will say, oh, the border's been a problem. It's the Republicans' fault. So President Trump has to make sure he calls out those lies and then focuses, of course, on the serious issue of an open border. And there have been a number of cases of late. Of course, that horrible case of the 13-year-old girl in Queens, of course, who was raped by an Ecuadorian illegal, a guy who never should have been in the country. Thank goodness he faced a little bit of street justice by the neighbors who got him. Thank goodness. There's the case, of course, of Rachel Morin, the mother of 5 in Maryland, who was raped and murdered by an illegal from El Salvador, who was wanted for murder in his country before he illegally came into America. He apparently crossed the border. I couldn't believe this. 4 times last year, ordered to be deported. You think he got the message? No way. He kept coming back because he knew he could get in eventually. I'm actually surprised he was even deported at all. So that was the stunning part of it. Obviously, what he did was horrific and monstrous. And now this case, of course, about Joycelyn Nungari, the 12-year-old girl who I think it's captivated the country. It has broken the hearts of, I think, everybody in America. And when I hear what happened to this young little girl, the final moments of her life, it is just gut-wrenching to hear the story of what she endured. She, of course, now has died. She was murdered by these 2 Venezuelan migrants. They allegedly killed her. They apparently lured her from her home, went to a convenience store with her, and then took her under a bridge. And that is where they apparently tortured her. And the stories that came out today, I literally was in tears watching because it was so hard to watch the mother of Joycelyn Nungari describe what happened to her daughter and the loss of her daughter to these monsters who never should have been in the country to begin with. One of them actually had an ankle bracelet on at the time that he committed the murder. Clearly, there was something suspicious about him. It's not like they were putting ankle bracelets on everybody who crosses the border. It's kind of unusual, quite frankly. And obviously it didn't stop him because he committed the murder anyway with the ankle bracelet on. So much for monitoring some of the worst who are crossing through our borders. And these 2 monsters apparently may have sexually assaulted her too. Listen to what the Harris County, Texas DA Kim Ogg described as what happened to Joycelyn in her final moments.
Life without parole would be the appropriate charge. But age is not the only consideration in this case or any case. The underlying actions of the criminals. This victim was found, bound and without clothing from the waist down in the water. And We just think that there's a good possibility. We hope that there's evidence that remains to be tested.
Let's hope that the remains can be tested. Remember, her body was thrown into a river, naked from the waist down, as you heard. And now tonight we're hearing that there were cuts all over her back. She was bound, and she was under that bridge for 2 hours. Why are these people even in this country? I'm sorry. When I hear this, I get so angry and so outraged and so disgusted. And apparently one of these guys told his boss afterwards that he needed money, which is why, thank goodness, the judge in this case set a very high bail. There should be no bail. But the judge, at least in this case, set a very, very high bail because he realized clearly these guys are a flight risk. Because it's so obvious, even to a very liberal judge, apparently, down there. The judge apparently is one known for giving not really hard sentences or hard punishments. And in this particular case, he said at this phase that clearly this guy is a flight risk because it was so obvious. He apparently went to his boss at a construction site and said, I may need some money because I may need to get out of here now after this killing happened. And apparently he told his boss that he kissed her, and that maybe the other guy did other things that were much worse, and that things got out of hand, and then something went wrong, and that somebody died. That was sort of the description. And thank goodness that boss called police and said, "Here's the guy. Here's the deal." At least he realized that's not somebody who should be walking among us. But it was so blatant that the guy was planning to flee. And why would he? He has no connections to this community. But it was so blatant that he was planning to flee that's why it came to the point where the judge even instituted a huge, huge high bail and is expected to do the same for the co-killer tomorrow. So Joycelyn's mother, can you imagine how heartbreaking? This mother's 27 years old. The daughter is 12. And the mother said she had her when she was just 15 years old. She was a teenage mom. This is her first child. And she said that, she was always a great kid and a beautiful kid and somebody who was full of life and full of love and full of joy, taken obviously way, way too early. Here's the mom talking today after court. It's unbelievable.
Franklin Pena was arraigned, his bond set at $10 million. The charge is capital murder of a child between 10 and 15 years old. At this time, the current charge does not carry death penalty eligibility. However, it is important for the public and the press to know that the investigation is ongoing, that forensics and lab work are required in this case, and unlike on television, they can't do it in an hour. So we'll look forward to the results of the tests that are being run on the evidence in the case. And should those tests produce evidence that would support a charge of sexual assault, or should other evidence be brought forward that supports a charge of kidnapping, both underlying offenses would make this capital murder and these individuals death penalty eligible.
And of course, whatever the law allows is what should be doled out to these monsters. That was the Harris County DA, Kim Ogg, talking about maybe more details to come, even more horrific details to come in this case. Here is Joycelyn Nungari's mother, again, who was a teenage mom when she had her, and unbelievable that she is now dealing with this moment and says what she thinks should happen to these killers.
What is your message as her mother to the justice system?
Please don't fail us. Please don't let us down. The city of Houston has done everything in their power to bring this to now. It's the justice system to do their part as well. It's a community effort. It's a partnership. We all have to follow through, and we all need to give them their punishments that they deserve, because my baby didn't deserve this.
What do you hope that punishment is?
That they receive worse than what my daughter did. because she deserves to live and breathe every single day. I was looking forward to seeing how beautiful she was going to grow up to be. And I know God is real, God is good, and they will feel God's wrath.
Wow. Worse than what they did to her. Worse than what they did to her. I don't know if it could be much worse than what they did to her, because it is so shocking and so despicable. And again, one of them had an ankle bracelet on. That's unbelievable. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey. Sandra, tough stuff. This is just, it's horrific. But if there's ever a case that epitomizes what happened when you have a wide open border and no vetting or not enough vetting, this is why you do not have an open border. This is exactly why you don't.
You know, Rita, I'm in my kitchen and I took out a mug that's in my cabinet here, and it's a picture of Donald Trump on the mug, and it says Law and Order. And I can't believe I took it out as you're speaking about what these monsters do. To me, Rita, there's nothing else but the death penalty, and that's it. So I don't even want to talk about that, because that's how I feel. And I'm looking at Donald Trump, and I'm taking him out of my closet, and he's going to be right here for my morning coffee. But, Rita, I was thinking about the debate, and I was listening to all the great ideas you had, you know, to give him tips on how to do well, and also Bill O'Reilly. And even I read one that I liked that let Biden talk, and he's going to talk himself into losing. So that's another good tip. And then I thought about some people saying, well, maybe he shouldn't be doing this debate. Well, he has to do the debate because he didn't do the other debates. So if he didn't do this one, it wouldn't look right at all. So he has to do the debate. And he was funny at one of his rallies. He was saying, should I be rough and tough and nasty, or should I be nice and calm? And they were saying boo to the nice and calm. But I think in the end... Yeah, by the way,
they were all cheering for rough and tough. I saw that.
But in the end, what I think he needs to convey, and even the people at his rallies want this, they want optimism. They want to know that if you're going to be the president, we don't want drama. We want a happy future with stability. And that's what he has to convey. And I love those tips. I wish you can call Donald Trump and talk to him, Rita. I'm not kidding.
You know what?
Rita?
Yeah. No. But I hear you. That I think the letting him go is a good idea. Because I think Biden will fall into a trap, but he's got to get some zingers under him. The interesting thing, I think you want him to be clear on his vision, but you also can't be afraid to give it a little bit, because people want to see that you're willing to fight for them. And you also need to put this guy in his place, because Joe Biden also, the moments where he goes off script, you got to create the moments where he goes off script, because if he can remember the lines, which are, of course, hard enough alone for him to do, but if you can get him off script, then he could say something really wacky and crazy. That's what he always says, these kooky things that he ends up having to apologize for, or he slurs a word or can't remember, or this freeze moment, one of those like just stop short moment where you go, oh my God, is he going to speak? Is he going to speak? One of those moments could be created too. So it's a balancing act. And let's see, I'm sure President Trump knows that and sees that he just can't take the bait. He has to stay presidential and sharp, as he always is. But he has to stay in the very presidential lane. Don't take the bait, President Trump. Do not take the bait. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll continue your calls on The Rita Cosby Show.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, tomorrow, the second illegal Venezuelan migrant will appear in court. And it looks like that they're trying to, at least attorneys may be trying to have them turn against each other. So we'll see what the details come out from the other one. But there are details on this one that apparently, according to one report, that one is saying, oh, well, I didn't really do it. It was the other one. I just happened to be there. Well, they are obviously both horrible monsters for playing any sort of role in this beautiful, beautiful young girl's killing. And it's just heartbreaking. When I hear that mother, it is like a gut punch. And it just epitomizes how dangerous it is when you cannot check what's happening and where these people are coming from and what their backgrounds are. Because clearly, if they're going to do this to a young 12-year-old girl, you know that there's probably a criminal history in their background. I want to know why one of them had an ankle bracelet. I find that interesting. Did they have some indication that maybe he was doing something in his home country? Is there something in there that we don't know that they knew? Why would you let somebody in at all if you got to monitor them with an ankle bracelet? 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to BJ in Queens. BJ, this case gets me so angry because it just epitomizes why you cannot have an open border, because some bad folks, some bad hombres like those guys are going to slip through.
Yeah, Rita, hi. This is really bad. This shook me to my core. It almost made me throw up listening to this poor woman. This poor woman needs to tell a tale at the Republican National Convention, along with the loved ones of Lake and Riley. This is the price of illegal immigration. It's not about women on the subways with their children selling chocolate in the morning. You're letting in an element that has no intention of assimilating with Western culture. They just want to kill people and rob them of what they think they can get off them. They're coming in. He was right when he came down the escalator at Trump Tower. They're bringing their problems. They're bringing their rapists. They're bringing all of their evils here. Okay, and unless you're a dummy, or something wrong with you mentally, you can see it. You can see it, and you know who to hold responsible for it. This is all about getting and expanding the Democrat voter base
at the expense of American people being completely vulnerable. And the fact that, as far as we know, President Joe Biden hasn't called any of these families, that is a disgrace. That is disgusting.
Rita Cosby is on.
President Joe Biden, you should be saying the names of these young girls that have captured the headlines and our hearts and have been heartbreaking stories just in the last week or two alone. Rachel Morin, again, the Maryland mother of 5, killed by an illegal from El Salvador. How about the 13-year-old girl? Again, her name has not come out because she's a minor. But in the Queen's case, he hasn't talked about that. An illegal from Ecuador. And also, what about Joycelyn Nungare, the 12-year-old girl who was brutally killed by these Venezuelans, these illegal migrants? And remember also, so far, President Joe Biden, the only name he has ever said is Laken Riley. And he didn't even say her name right. And he didn't even say it on his own. He was forced to say it because of that encounter, remember, with Marjorie Taylor Greene at the State of the Union. That's when we got angry Joe Biden. And at that moment, he was like, sort of like, no, it's Laken Riley, Lincoln Riley. I'm not sure what her name is. Here's what I think. Remember? And then he had to retract it. Who could forget this moment? Because that's the last time I've ever heard him even make any names public, because he doesn't want to talk about them. He doesn't want to humanize them, because it shows how dangerous this open border is. And guess who's responsible? His administration and him as the commander in chief. Here he is at the State of the Union.
I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress and the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win. He viewed it as would be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border, because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly.
There is so much there. So much. First, Lincoln Riley. There I said it. There I said it. By an illegal. There I said it. Well, remember right afterwards, this president had to backpedal, and he apologized not to Laken Riley's family for mispronouncing her name or for having an open border. In that case, Jose Ibarra, remember the Venezuelan with his brother who had MS-13 gang ties? No. He didn't apologize to her family. He apologized to the murderer for calling him illegal, saying that's not nice. Remember this.
You use the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect.
I will treat them with disrespect. Because guess what? They completely went far beyond disrespecting beautiful Americans like Joycelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin, and Laken Riley. And shame on this president for backpedaling. He has no moral compass, and he seems to have no moral authority also in the world. And the way he has handled the border crisis and the back and forth and the waffling, and then after that, he apologizes. Oh, I'm not going to disrespect the killer, a guy who comes in and kills a Georgia nursing student while she's jogging in broad daylight. You have nothing to apologize for, Mr. President, just mispronouncing Laken Riley's name. He should have doubled down. But instead, this president has no spine, and he is so bending over backwards and acquiescing to the far left of his party, that he has no moral compass. And he's doing it on Israel, too. You see it all over the place. He has no leadership skills. And again, no North Star. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Anthony in Long Island. Anthony, your thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Cosby, for receiving my call. Should not Alejandro Mayorkas, our Homeland Security, Kamala Harris, our border czar, Joe, Executive Order, Biden, should they not all have to stand trial for this? And does this not justify the dismantling of Homeland Security? Because it has been anything but that. And when I'm so infuriated by these poor children and the lives that have been destroyed by this administration, they've done it on purpose, and they're so smug. And when you see Mayorkas and they talk word salad, and they act like they compassion and they care, but they are supposed to work for us. We're not subjects. We're citizens, and we pay them to do a job.
Yeah,
job that they are not doing.
I hear you.
They should all have to stand trial alongside these monsters.
The problem is, Anthony, and by the way, I agree with you on the monsters. That's a nice thing to call them, because these people who have committed these heinous crimes, I agree with you, they're animals. And it makes me sick when I play that clip that I just played, Anthony, of Joe Biden apologizing. What was your reaction to that, by the way, when you hear him apologizing, not to Laken Riley, not to Laken Riley's family? He's apologizing to the killer for calling the illegal migrant illegal. Your thoughts?
Yes, it's absolutely disgusting. It's abhorrent. None of this makes sense. This entire administration is a disgrace to the red, white, and blue. And all that we pay in tax dollars to have a safe and secure country. And what do we have? What do we have? We've been betrayed. This is tyranny. This is absolute tyranny. And then you put into the equation Dr. Fauci releasing a virus on all of us just to get Joe Biden elected. I mean, it's so apparent.
Let's stay focused first off on the border, okay? But you know what? No. But I hear you. Listen, there's a lot of questions with Fauci too. But with Mayorkas, first of all, when you're in a public position, it's very hard to sue somebody or take them to trial or hold them criminally responsible. That's why impeachment is the process. And I contend if there ever was something to impeach Joe Biden over, it's the border. I mean, his dereliction of the border, I think, is impeachable. It is downright despicable what he has done, because he's the one carrying out the orders. Now, Mayorkas, remember, they had a chance to impeach him, and it did not go through. And the reason was, remember, he was impeached but not removed. So remember, when they sent it over to the Senate, they wouldn't even have a trial. They didn't even want to have like a 1 or 2 day trial. They wouldn't spend 5 minutes on it. And that's why this is so important, who you elect and who you want in the majority. Because had the Republicans been in the majority, guess what? Mayorkas would have been out of there and it would have sent a message. But in the Senate, I'm referring to, it was enough in the House, but not in the Senate. And that alone, that's the reason why you got to also elect officials in the Senate and the House that hold your values and get out and vote, because every vote counts. It's so slim as a margin in both of those chambers. And had there been a Republican Senate, you would not see Mayorkas there anymore. And you might not have even seen Joe Biden. Joe Biden may have been impeached and removed. But guess what? Unfortunately, that's not the case. Your thoughts, Anthony?
Well, I feel as though they're all on the take. It's because they're taking money from special interests and corporations that do not care about sovereignty of this country. They only care about a globalist agenda and undermining the workforce of this country and destroying it.
And beefing up voters eventually. Anthony, I still think that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And when I first used to hear people say, and I brought this up, the former Deputy Homeland Security Secretary Ken Cuccinelli said to me a couple of years ago, "Oh, Rita, they're trying to beef up the voter rolls and also the census. And I thought, God, that's a little crazy. But, Ken's a logical guy and a very smart guy. Turns out I actually think he's correct. Because why else would you have all these people come to this country unvetted, unchecked, unmanaged, and come to this country? And now suddenly we're seeing these little efforts where they're trying to give, expedited citizenship or make sure they're included in the census in certain states. There clearly is some master plan, because you can't be that stupid. When you see how many people are crossing the border, there is clearly a master plan. And that is really frightening, that they would turn a blind eye to the safety of this country for their own self-aggrandizement, their own fulfillment as a party, to continue, having enough Democrats, hopefully, that they believe would vote for them. That's what I believe the strategy is. And that is really sad. It's a long-term plan with very quick and long-term destruction to America. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's go to Devin in the Bronx. Devin, your thoughts.
Hey, Rita, thank you so much to take my call. Listen, today I was listening to the Mark Levin show, and you know something? All these years I've been listening to that guy. Today I really hear it in his voice when he was talking about that 12-year-old what get raped. And for a minute, it have to make me stop and pull over, because it was just so I can't believe what I'm really hearing all these 34 years I'm in this country. This is crazy.
Where are you from, Devin?
I'm from Jamaica.
Wow. And when you hear this, it's heartbreaking of what's happening.
Yeah, Rita,
who do you blame? But hang on, no, who do you blame?
You know what, Rita? I'm kind of in the middle with this thing, and the reason for me is in the middle with this thing, because the last time I used to listen to those left wing there with this Chris Mafia and all of those talking points, and I started in my car and I started to listen to conservative radio, and there's a couple of things where you guys said I really agree with about physical responsibility and stuff like that, because I'm a part of that, and I'm not a part of like government handout and all these stuff. But Rita, one thing you got to remember, you got a lot of illegal people in this country. What they do, they apply for tax ID number, and they've been paying taxes in this country till thy kingdom come. And they don't get no reward. You have people who come from Venezuela, and they just get reward. And like a guy like me now, who I try to send for my brother or my sister, it take me 10 years before the process can even happen. So this is why you have all these Operation Chaos going on.
That's actually, I firmly disagree. And I'll tell you why, Devin. One thing, I agree with you, the amount of time it takes, because it does take a long time. By the way, both of my parents were born outside of America. My father was born in Poland. My mother was Danish. It took them, I believe it was about 5.5 years for them to become citizens. It was a number of decades ago. And yes, that process does need to be speeded up. And I agree with you on that, Devin. There are great people like you who are law-abiding citizens who, yes, it should be quicker. There should not be anything. So I agree with you on that. Where I disagree is you seem to make it like that's the reason people are frustrated and coming illegally because it's taking so long legally. That's not the reason to buck the system. Is that? I hope that's not where you're going, because a lot of these people are just taking advantage of a bad situation with an open border and a president that has no spine.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Rita, because you know what? We have to have law and order here. Even so, I'm in New York City right now, and I can tell you something. All these years I'm in this country, I am telling you right now, this place here, sometime I wouldn't even get in an elevator right now. Yep. And I do not want to sound intelligent by putting down my own people, because that's not what I'm doing.
Well, and Devin, unfortunately, hang on 1 second, Devin, because we're unfortunately up against a hard break. But I hear what you're saying about crime being so bad. And it doesn't, to me, it's everywhere. It's every race, color, creed. It's not, it's not an African American issue. It is an issue that's affecting every single sector. Devin, you got to call back again. Very interesting conversation and important to hear your perspective. And I hope good folks like you deserve to be citizens. And we got to vet the bad ones out. Thank you so much, Devin. And now to our Support Our Heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
This is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a powerful story coming from Augusta, Maine. An abandoned U.S. veteran who died alone in a Maine nursing home was given a proper goodbye last week. Get this, by hundreds of kind-hearted strangers. Former Marine Jerry Brooks's burial at the Maine Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Augusta was marked by a 21-gun salute, a pilot who performed a flyover, a motorcycle escort, and full honors thanks to the help of multiple military groups from across the state. The heartwarming ceremony blossomed from a desperate notice posted by the funeral home asking if anyone would serve as a pallbearer or simply attend a burial for a forgotten Marine. Get this, within minutes of that notice going out, that funeral home was turning away volunteers to carry his casket, the AP reported. So many groups volunteered to take part in paying tribute, and there wasn't even enough space to fit them into the burial service. What an incredible, beautiful story. And the funeral director said, quote, "It renews your faith in humanity." What a powerful story. And I hope every single veteran gets an overflow crowd at their funeral and a 21-gun salute and the respect and love of their communities and an outpouring of support, especially while they're alive and also afterwards, too, as well. What a beautiful story. And everybody, help America to never, ever forget. All you have to do to make a huge difference is donate just $11 a month to the incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. They do so much. Be sure to check them out at T2T.org, T2T.org.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. It's The Rita Cosby Show.
And everybody, we were talking about how elections have consequences, how important it is if there is a Senate in one party that has an influence that could have potentially removed Alejandro Mayorkas. They could have even potentially, if it warranted, to go after impeachment of Joe Biden. So there's so many things. Tomorrow, lots of primaries taking place around the country, including Jamal Bowman and George Latimer in New York. Jamal Bowman, who over the weekend was swearing and ranting and all this stuff. Get out and vote. This is the guy who pulled the fire alarm. This is the guy who has said all these horrible anti-Semitic things. George Latimer is quite a bit ahead at this point, but you can't take anything for granted. Get out and vote for people who have at least common sense and against those who do not. Remember, he didn't even admit to pulling the fire alarm until he happened to be caught on videotape, and then he admitted to it. Meantime, we're talking also about the border. Let's go real quick to Larry in Brooklyn. Larry, your thoughts?
Yeah, after these animals, I feel this thing has been taken out of that term a little bit, but after these animals get the death penalty, I think Texas has to set a precedent and not give them any appeals. They should set an execution date and carry it out. If their attorneys want to appeal it to the federal courts, let them do it. But Texas should not give them any state appeal.
That's an interesting point because you're right. It could drag out on and on and on. Obviously, you want to make sure they have the right guys, but if they do, I agree.